And then you sell the business and your last day comes and you're really excited, but you have no idea what you're running to. You know what you're running from, but unless you've done the work to figure out what you're running to, you wake up that next day and you have no clue what you're going to do.
Welcome to Your Next Big Project is You, a podcast based around the theme of time. Time to be able to press pause on life. Time to reevaluate what's important. Time to reminisce about where you've come from, what you've learned, and what you've accomplished. Time to revisit your goals, dreams, and vision. And time to remember the people in your life. That's it, my friends. If you've got time, fasten your seatbelt and listen in as we discuss opportunities for the next 5 to 25 years of your life. And remember, your next big project is you.
Welcome to our podcast. Your next big project is you. And I have a special guest today from Arizona. I want to welcome Troy Rice. I've had the pleasure of meeting Troy. And by my standards and knowing so many people in my Rolodex, talk about world class as it relates to coaching, to facilitating groups of entrepreneurs, business leaders on business issues and life issues. So, Troy, thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely, Leo. Thank you so much. I'm both humbled and honored to get to spend a little bit of time with you and looking forward to it.
Well, from the couple of times we met, I could have literally just let those conversations flow for hours. So many life experiences, coaching experiences. You've really seen it all by my standards, and you've lived this life of now doing some extraordinary coaching. By my standards, in terms of being in the business and helping people for the last almost 4 decades of my life right now. Tell me more about your journey, Troy, for people that are listening in today.
Well, interestingly, I think my career has really kind of had 4 stages, and I didn't know it then, but I now know it now looking back, that they all built on each other, even though it didn't seem like it at the time. I started out incredibly driven. I'm a CPA by background, and I went to work for the Big 8 at the time, which dates me a little bit. And it was all about succeeding, and it was winning, and it was success. And oftentimes I didn't necessarily care about other people. I had great relationships with other people, and I didn't necessarily want to do something counter to them, but it was about me. And I had that success. And then there came this opportunity to, after doing Deloitte and Trammell Crow and a few others, where I got the opportunity to do some startups. And what's interesting is when you do startups, you are with a lot of people that are passionate and yet are filling a lot of roles that they don't really have the background to fill. And so it started all about me. And then when I was at Trammell Crow, I used to think, wow, it's about these buildings we build. Well, when I started startups, it became all about the people that we built, because we didn't get any company unless we built people. And so that became my job, is how do I help people grow and excel beyond where they think they really can grow and excel? I became successful as they did. And so that was all new to me. And yet I loved it. And I had great coaches along the way that encouraged me to see that and develop that in me, that ability to help others accelerate their careers and their abilities. And so, that became an incredible journey of building companies. And then this last evolution came where I had sold a company. I had been a Vistage member for a long time. People had poured into me and helped me be successful. And all of a sudden, success just seemed like this never ever moving, never ending target. And I knew there had to be something more. And it was really, I love your work so much because you help people really start to see and pursue their more existential purposes. And I think it really was an existential moment for me where it wasn't about me. It probably never was, but I finally realized it wasn't about me. And I knew that my purpose wasn't about success, it was about significance. And the only way to get there was when it wasn't about me, when it became about serving others and helping them, on their journey. And that would become my legacy and my purpose. And so that's what I've been doing over the last 12 years with this stage and coaching and helping CEOs and executives and now ultra high net worth people with Tiger 21 to really get beyond themselves and help them on this journey from success to significance.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned a couple group names right now. Vistage, Tiger 21. We'll talk about that in terms of the differences and things. But from listening to you, Troy, and as I said, meeting you a couple times, and being driven, the whole issue of success for yourself. But now it's interesting, isn't it, when you're helping other people to find success for themselves and participating in that achievement. When you mention these 4 stages, it's almost like chapters in our life. I guess if you had to write your autobiography, these stages or chapters, as I see them, have led you to where you're at today, which has been, a very interesting ride and a journey. So it was interesting. You mentioned also about these CEOs in the startups. I remember when I started my company a little over 3 decades ago, my wife looked at me, she said, "What's the worst that can happen?" I said, "We'll sell the house and keep the kids." Okay. And here we are. The 4 kids are intact, 7 grandkids as of this podcast. And so looking back at this and all these CEOs that you're coaching now, what are you seeing? What's keeping them up at night? If there's any generalities or any, any specifics that you're hearing, if you had to think about the number of these CEOs that you're privileged to work with, what are you hearing and seeing for yourself?
Yeah. Well, interestingly, I don't think the thing that keeps them up at night has really changed, but why it keeps them up at night really has.
Mm.
So when I first started coaching CEOs, one of them, as I was talking with him, said, I realized that all my problems have shoes. Meaning every issue that he had, everything that kept him up at night related back to people. And now, fast forward 12 years later, people are the issue. And I don't mean them as an issue, as in something we have to solve for, but something where we have to create an environment that they can solve for. We got to empower them. We got to train them. We got to create an environment where they can be productive and fruitful and collaborate with others. This whole work from home environment gets a lot of press these days and now blended as we try to bring them back. And it's not about us and our desires to have them in the office. It's about what is the environment that helps them grow and thrive the best. And I'm not sure it's a one size fits all. And I think in our move towards efficiency, we get stuck thinking it's a one size fits all. And it's best one way or the other is best for the organization. And yet an organization isn't a thing. It's just a bunch of people that are gathered together to pursue a common cause. So that's what's, it's all about people. And that's what's keeping my CEOs up at night with it, which is trying to figure that out.
Well, when you mentioned all my problems have shoes, just to humanize this for you, Troy, my godfather, Uncle Tony, right, had a little shoe repair shop right by his house where I grew up, south of Rochester, New York. And you're right. You just think of all the people driving up there, and for this CEO or this coaching client of yours to say it in such a human way that they've all got shoes. Now, if you think about the pathway you've gone on from startups to these CEOs, many of them that have now created liquidity events, what's happening when they've reached that pinnacle, when they've started something in essence and built it to sell, and now they've sold it? Are there issues more around growth and preservation of all that hard-earned money, or are they shifting to other legacy, like you talked about, success to significance, legacy type of issues? What's foremost on their plate right now when they've reached that pinnacle of success?
Yeah, Interestingly, almost all of them, and I'm guessing you see this in spades in the work that you're doing, which by the way is very cool. Um, when you're building a company, you're almost singularly focused. Every day you wake up and you go, how do I help my people succeed? How do I help the company succeed? And then you sell the business, and your last day comes, and you're really excited, but you have no idea what you're running to. You know what you're running from, but unless you've done the work to figure out what you're running to, you wake up that next day and you have no clue what you're going to do. What's going to fill that void? And I've now walked beside so many of them. And that's why, the work that you're doing, which is to help them sort through that, to figure out what is that purpose? What is that cause that they're now going to be focused on,
Yeah.
that they're going to drive towards because that's who they are. But it's to find it.
Hmm. It builds on that shoe metaphor as well. They're
Yeah.
running. They're running. It's the Forrest Gump, right? I'm just started running, right? He just didn't stop. And it's like, and all of a sudden you've been working and working and doing and driving towards success, singular focus. And all of a sudden there's a payday. And it's like, oh my gosh, what's next, right? So
Mm.
I'm curious, when you talk to some of these folks, some of them are better as coaching clients. Some of them are probably paying the rear end, I would think, because they're trying to figure things out for themselves. They just don't know it yet. What makes for a successful, business or life coaching client, whether they're still in that singular focus, or let's say they've had that liquidity event? What are some of the characteristics of people that you really love to work with that inspire you as well?
Mm. That they know that they don't know.
Hmm.
It's when they know they don't know what they're going towards and they want to figure it out. They're willing to do the work to figure it out, because it's work, just like it's work building a company and helping people grow, figuring out what that existential purpose that you exist to fulfill. It's not always right at the tip of your tongue. In fact, I find it rarely is. So the people I love to coach, especially those that have post liquidity event, they are going, like you said, they're running. They're going to keep running. The
Yeah.
question I always ask is, what are you running to?
Yeah. I love that thought.
And helping them slow down enough that they can go slower in order to go faster. They're still going to do some incredible things. I know people now that are on their third or fourth big thing.
Hmm.
And but it's all about furthering their legacy and their impact on others than just winning. Success in and of itself is empty. If you don't figure significance out, all you're ever going to do is run, and you're never going to be full.
Oh, well, that's pretty heavy there, buddy.
I'm-
That's
and yet that's
oh, you're right on.
it's what coaching really is all about. It's I always say I'm not a consultant. I'm never gonna know as much about them or their meet or their companies as they're gonna know. They're the experts. I'm more of a mirror holder and truth teller. I just want them to see what I see and then figure out what they're gonna do with it.
Hmm. Great way to define the coaching and really listening to really interpret, to understand, to bring empathy, humanize these discussions. I love it too when you talk about these people that know that they don't know. They're open-minded, right? They still got that intellectual life curiosity. That old ancient proverb, there was a used to end with, if you he who knows and he who knows not, but knows that he knows not, right? Is ignorant, teach him. Or and that he who knows but knows that he knows is a wise man. Follow him or follow her. To do that, it really makes you think about these things. So one of the things that I captured in my notes from talking to you as well, because I'm looking at a bookshelf behind you and a lot of things obviously that you've learned from as well. But I'm going to give a shout out to one of the authors I know that you're very big on in terms of the psychology of money, the author Morgan Housel. Tell me more about why that's on your recommended list for successful business leaders and entrepreneurs.
People's relationship with money is odd. And it's always misconstrued. Have you ever had two kids? I have I have two kids, one where their only dollar, every dollar is money not yet spent versus the one that saves every dollar. And there's some psychology that goes behind that, why they do what they do, and yet they never understand it. The Psychology of Money was the first book I ever read that really articulated why some people are very successful financially and others aren't. It's not some innate skill. It's about our relationship to money. And if we can understand that and come to grips with it, then we can change it if we want to. And if you don't have that understanding, so there's a bunch of principles that are brought out, but probably the ones I always like the most are, it starts with humility. So we talked earlier about what makes a great CEO client. It's those that are confident yet lack hubris. They have a humility about them that goes, I'm still on the journey, and so many people can help me on that journey, and I want to allow them to help me. But humility is part of it. That always learning, that financially and how markets work, where you don't know, but you're always trying to learn more. And it talks about that. The other characteristic that it talked about people that are successful with money is that they're hardworking. So not only do they want to learn, but they're willing to do the work.
Yeah.
And then finally, they always have strong morals. You can get ahead in the short term by having questionable morals and integrity, but you never do it generationally without a strong moral foundation. So I mean, yeah, I maybe iterated on some of the things that Morgan said, but I love the book.
Yeah, so many things happen even at such an early age. One of my other podcast guests who heads up a ultra high net worth group at one of the prominent firms in the country said that many of our feelings and our perspectives around money happen as little as 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. Literally at the kitchen table, growing up and listening to our moms and dads talk in what we were served or how we were treated or what we had in our house or things like that. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that, all the people that you coach as well.
Oh, in fact, in Tiger, how we treat wealth with our kids, that next generation, probably gets more attention than everything because people realize they can easily mess it up.
Yeah.
And they're going to burden their kids if they don't create a good relationship with money. It's interesting. Anybody can become wealthy regardless of their relationship to money. But unless you have a proper relationship with money, you'll never stay wealthy. So it's how we treat our kids and how we help them understand money, the value of money, and more important, that it's not about us. It's about how can we use money to benefit all, not just ourselves, is what keeps a proper perspective on money. If it's just about consuming more, you can't have a good relationship with money.
Yeah, and money and wealth and peace of mind. When I think back to It's a Wonderful Life with the Jimmy Stewart movie, right? Here's my brother, the richest man in town. Didn't really have a pot to what in, but he was loaded with friends and people that revered him for the work and the caring and the giving that he did in his community. Became a very rich man when you measured it not by dollars and cents, but by health and friends and people that you've impacted to do that.
Absolutely. One of the things I'm unfortunately disappointed about in our society is this movement towards comparison and doing one better than the Joneses, and this consumption philosophy. I heard this recent thing, and it really is profound. It said that comparison is the root of all sorrow.
Mm.
I just thought that describes it exactly. We're incredibly content with what we have until the neighbor has something more.
Yeah. It's like we become envious. I looked that up in the dictionary years ago, and envy was described or defined as a call to action.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, call to action to what? I mean, there's a point of being satisfied and not worrying about keeping up with the Joneses. But are you fulfilled? Is there an inner glow that you have that can be enkindled in others? I said, for you or he to glow, he himself must glow, or to get other people, they can feel it, that you're satisfied in things. So you brought up a couple of names here. Let's clear this up for people that may not be familiar. You mentioned a Vistage group, and there's a phenomenal organization as well. Different purpose in terms of its the type of people it attracts, called Tiger 21. Tell us a little bit about Vistage and then about Tiger 21. Maybe somebody listening in might have an interest, and you never know. It might be good to, just for a point of clarification right here.
I'm very passionate about both because these organizations in combination allow me to walk beside leaders from the time they first become leaders all the way to the grave, and all those evolutions. But Vistage is the largest CEO peer organization in the world, about 45,000 members worldwide. And they work with CEOs and the CEOs' teams.
Mm.
And they have peer learning groups, uh, also incorporate outside subject matter experts and professional facilitators, uh, like me, who receive a lot of training, and really their job is to curate and facilitate. And it's really all about creating better leaders and making better decisions, and about creating better companies that are purpose driven. And that's why I'm passionate about it. It's why I love it. It's why I was a member from the time I was 29, and then 12 years ago was asked to be a chair, and I've just loved that calling. Tiger 21 was like the next evolution of that. So what I found is, in my Vistage groups, my CEOs had about over $4 billion of exits so far. And oftentimes they, instead of running a business, now had to be responsible for wealth. And so they weren't really, some of them still maybe owned their companies or owned part of their companies, but now it was about being responsible with this wealth that they now had. And their peer group at Vistage, they weren't all in the same boat. And so the problems they're trying to solve for, it's everybody around the table doesn't have those problems. They're trying to solve for something different. And it doesn't make them any less of a problem, but they need a different peer group to really work through that. And that's what Tiger 21 is. As you acquire more wealth, unfortunately, there's fewer and fewer people that you can chat with about the problems you have, because your problems just sound like a rich jerk complaining, when the reality is they're still problems. And you want to do the right thing. You want to figure it out. And that's really what Tiger 21 is about. It's about not only sustaining wealth, but philanthropy, passing it responsibly to the next generation. And now that I have the wherewithal to spend more time pursuing those existential purposes that we were talking about earlier.
So thank you for that. So about 45,000 people, give or take,
Yep.
Vistage worldwide. And my understanding with Tiger 21 and growing, about 1,200 plus, give or take.
Yeah, and to be clear, it's a much smaller universe.
Yeah.
So, the 1,200 members, when I say ultra high net worth, those 1,200 members have a combined network worth of about 145 billion.
Wow. So it's almost like we've advanced past Vistage. We've maybe had our liquidity event or some reached a point where our needs are more around preservation and growth, as well as the integration of some of those issues around significance and legacy and family continuity and values, transitioning, things like that to do
A-
that. So,
Absolutely, because you're now more of an investor of wealth as opposed to the creator of wealth. Not always, but often.
yeah. Isn't it interesting, Troy, when we think back on our careers as well? And I've described it, you've mentioned success to significance. And when we think back, when you got that job in the big eight accounting firm and things, when I started my career way back 45 or so years ago now, I always tell people that the first stage is more of just trying to survive. Just getting my first job, and, and I, things were different back then for the two of us, right? I mean, we just want to get by, show up at work, suit and tie on, right? I mean, we went through that stage, and all of a sudden, I said we go from surviving to some sense of security. Like, hey, look, I'm getting married, buying a car, I got my first house, we're gonna have a kid, I got promoted. My gosh, look at what's going on here. That sense of goes to some sense of success. We've gone from survival to security to success. Holy cow, look at me now. I'm in the C-suite. I'm managing a group of people. They want me to move and pick up and manage this plant or go someplace else and pick up a lot more responsibility, and I'm going to make a lot more money. And all of a sudden, all the great things that you're doing, I love, is that significance comes into play. And what did you say? Success in itself can be just heavy? Is that how you
So,
said it?
yeah, so success by itself is empty.
It's
You will
empty.
you will never be full until
Yeah.
you can discover significance. But
Wow.
it's when it's not about you.
Yeah. You know, I'll just end with this. Remember when I was showing you some of the things that I'm playing around with these days here?
Oh yeah.
And when I put together some cards, and as you know, my my heart today and where I'm helping people is to think about the level that they're at in that transition to then call a next chapter, what's next, second half, third period, fourth quarter. I don't care what we call it. When you're helping the people that you are in those organizations, living a life of significance, living a life with no regrets, living a life with abundance and gratitude and having better perspective, increasing our sensitivity to what we have and what others do not have. That leads us into how can we be the best version of ourselves now? Whether I'm leading a company or whether I've had a transition scenario, and then ultimately to not just leave a legacy, but to live it right now. I'm curious, with these questions and these cards and things, does any one of those stand out more to you? We've been talking a lot about significance, but do any one or two resonate more with you based on the people that you're privileged to coach and work with?
Oh, 100%, because the important work that you're doing is allowing for that next layer of the onion to be peeled back. They all build on themselves. I mean, I don't, if we weren't struggling and driving in success early in our careers, well, security wouldn't have had as much meaning to us. And then once we had security and we start realizing, hey, we've got these kids and there's this community that we're building and all this, well, all of a sudden significance wouldn't matter more. And then once we've had success and significance and we're thinking about, hey, now what? If it wasn't for peeling back that next layer of the onion, but that's work, and you're helping them do that really important work of peeling back, asking them those questions. Those are questions that they've never asked themselves. And
Right.
if somebody doesn't guide them and help them by really forcing them to stop, pause and ask those questions, it's hard to move to the next level.
Yeah.
So I love what you do. I've talked to people that have gone through the program, and man, they're it's like going from black and white to Technicolor, and
Oh,
they're on fire and alive again, and they're doing great things. You know, who knows? There may be other layers of the onion, but I'm really impressed that you're helping them get to that next layer.
well, like you, my friend, I'm on fire and alive, and it's so fulfilling, isn't it? What you do. And I know when I'm blessed to be able to do as well, to be around really interesting people, whether they want to be better leaders, better managers, better coaches, better individuals, better parents, better grandparents, better contributors to society. We're around people and facilitating dialogue. And I love what you said there as well, being a mirror um, to someone. I think that's how you said it, right? Being what you said,
Mirror holder and truth teller.
in truth teller. Yeah, that's it. Mirror teller and truth teller. That's Troy Rice. This is your life, Troy Rice. TV show.
Uh,
The mirror holder and the truth teller. That's you, my friend. Hey,
uh,
listen, Troy. We got a lot of great days ahead of us to laugh together and to share notes about what we're learning from the people that we're privileged to serve. And I really want to thank you for taking the time to share your wisdom and your insight, your perspectives, your philosophies, what you've learned from others, as well as your own pathway from survival to security to success in significance of your plan. Thank you so much, my
um,
friend.
thank
Really a
you.
pleasure.
I'm blessed to walk beside you and learn from you. So thank you.
Thanks, my friend. Thank you again.